workflows, okay? Hello and welcome to the Sony exhibit and to our presentation on production workflows. Sony is dedicated to being your partner in the evolving world of production. We listen to production companies and solve their problems with practical workflow innovation. We cut through the complexity of next-generation technologies. Our breakthroughs empower you not to simply create content, but to also move it, manage, and automate your entire workflow. Today, we'll be exploring the 5 pillars of production workflow, from acquisition to file management, post-production, distribution, and archive. So not only can Sony help you every step of the way, but we'll also be unveiling new applications and cloud services of unprecedented power. Now, let's start at the beginning with acquisition. Sony's cameras capture unprecedented pictures in 4K resolution with wide color gamut, high frame rates, and, of crucial importance, high dynamic range, or HDR. Sony supports HDR every step of the way. Our cameras can capture up to 14 stops of exposure latitude. And of course, we have the industry go-to HDR evaluation monitor, now accompanied by a 55-inch monitor to show HDR in delivery. At NAB 2017, we're introducing a new monitor designed for on-location, or OB HDR production. And that's in addition to a full range of switchers, converters, and replay servers to facilitate simultaneous broadcasting of live HDR and SDR. In fact, throughout NAB, we're presenting Sony's complete approach to live HDR on the stage. It's no wonder so many production professionals have chosen Sony HDR. Now, here's what Dave Mazza, Senior Vice President and Chief Technical Officer of NBC Sports Group, has to say.
Dynamic range, which we tested in Rio and are excited about the future of that, along with 4K. And the other is the high frame rate cameras that Sony's now coming out with. Both of those two things are displaying much better images than we've ever had before. Everybody knows 4K is coming. What wasn't clear for the past few years was whether or not HDR was going to come along with it. And we wanted to do a test of both at the opening ceremonies, and we did with 6 4300 cameras and several 4500 servers, and the pictures were stunning. We had never really done any HDR test out in real lighting conditions, and the opening ceremonies was perfect for it because they have so much highlights, lowlights, fireworks, the torch lighting. It was spectacular.
Of course, the camera is not a standalone device. It's your entry point into a complete production system, from the highly cost-effective to the large scale, from the entry level to the high end. Sony has the systemization you need. That brings us to file management. Sony's XDCAM format helped lead the transition from tape to file-based production, and we continue to advance the technology. Sony is expert at codec engineering, balancing file size, storage cost, transfer speed, and ease of management, all while retaining the highest image quality. This means significant savings in time and money. Our MPEG HD 422 codec is a well-established workhorse in HD production. Our XAVC codec features robust 10-bit recording and resolution up to 4K. Now they're joined by another landmark Sony codec, XOCN, short for Extended Tonal Range Original Camera Negative. Featured in our AXS-R7 outboard recorder, XOCN is perfect for 16-bit workflows. Now here's what Chris Faulkner, Director of Technology for 0.0, has to say about their experience with XOCN.
One of the things we've always Asked for is more color depth when we're shooting, because we're a lot of times in less than perfect circumstances. So we're not necessarily lighting a scene, and having the ability to shoot RAW or a compressed RAW format for us is huge, especially in documentary and television work, because it means we can go in and pull out a detail out of scenes that otherwise really would be subpar. The R7 and XOCN LT especially has allowed us to get all the footage we need and get it moved onto drives quicker than we've ever been able to do in the past. What's amazing for us with the F55 and the R7 and XOCN is we can put a small crew in the field, come back with raw quality camera originals, really go to town on them in color, and come out with a master quality finished product. Shooting on the F55 with the R7, it's really changed how we put a show together.
Our cameras capture phenomenal images. Our codecs preserve these images in files that balance picture quality and compact size. But when it comes to managing those files, conventional solutions fall short. After hearing from end users about their frustration, we realized that conventional media asset management systems have issues. The tools are too platform specific, locking you into just one operating system. The workflow automation is too difficult, often requiring too much IT expertise and too much time. And the learning curve is too steep, requiring expertise in Boolean search that not all of your people have. Now, Sony changes all that with a fresh new system called Media Backbone Navigator X. We designed this system to make asset search as easy as web search. If you can type into a search box, you can use Navigator X. And we have all kinds of ways to refine your searches, including Boolean logic if you need it. As a web application, Navigator X is an uncommonly open system. The app will run on any HTML5 compatible browser on Windows, Mac, or iOS. To be even more platform agnostic, Navigator X is also open to third-party nonlinear editors. Finally, Navigator X makes it easy to build automated workflows. You won't need an engineering degree and you won't need months and months of development. With Navigator X, building automated workflows is as easy as drag and drop. Navigator X is making its mark at Wells Fargo. Operations Manager for Video Services Nathan Dickerson explains.
The faster we can move the product, the happier our end customer is. We bring in a great deal of video on a daily basis, and having the ability to catalog it all in one spot, to access it from either of our offices, and to integrate it immediately and edit it is extremely attractive to us. Given the investment we have in acquiring the video and processing it and cataloging it, Navigator X becomes one of the most important parts of our edit process. The ability to do a federated search across all of our assets, to be able to find elements whether they are in spinning drives, whether they are in nearline storage or on the shelf is vitally important to us. Navigator X offers all of these things to us.
Sony clearly has a lot to offer in file management, and we continue to support you into post-production. A good example is our free RAW Viewer application. Sony created RAW Viewer to render the highest image quality from our camera formats. Specializing in viewing, treating, and processing your footage, the RAW Viewer application complements your existing workflow tools. Version 2.3 now supports Sony's XOCN and XAVC-I codecs and incorporates a host of compelling features. Improved debayering, HDR waveform monitoring, wide color gamut vector scope, and even dual monitor outputs. RAW Viewer is just the beginning. Sony's Catalyst suite encompasses powerful tools that enable you to browse, prepare, and edit. Tools we've appropriately named Catalyst Browse, Catalyst Prepare, and Catalyst Edit. These now incorporate support for the XOCN codec, plus comprehensive tools for HDR workflow for Sony cameras, ranging from the Z150 all the way to the F65. Catalyst Browse is a free Windows or Mac clip management app. You can browse files from your Sony camera, deck, or card reader with detailed views of individual clips, see and edit metadata, accurately view video using source color space, and apply color correction and color looks. Catalyst Prepare eases your editor's workload. Quickly offload footage, review and apply color correction, and batch transcode to a choice of formats. And you can send, store, and upload and distribute to Sony's other workflow solutions. Now, your Catalyst Prepare libraries are immediately accessible in the newest member of the suite, Catalyst Edit. This focus toolset gives you quick access to all the essential cutting tools, as well as effects, titling, and other capabilities to bring your production from imagination to screen. Sony is also taking post-production to the cloud, where our C Media Cloud platform represents a major step forward in simplicity and accessibility. The C platform supports the entire media lifecycle, from acquisition through distribution and archive, and it's never been easier. You can upload directly to C from your camera, laptop, or any connected device using our apps or our REST API. C accepts your mezzanine or source files, creates editorial proxies, and delivers them directly to your facility. C can perform secure sharing, frame-accurate collaboration, and simple rough cuts, all in the cloud, so editorial begins and ends faster. C automatically archives your content in multiple redundant cloud locations, and because the cloud is everywhere, it's ideal for content distribution. And distribution is the next step in our journey. Today's producers and content owners need to support a growing range of distribution platforms, not just cinema and broadcast, but also over-the-top, web, mobile, and social media. Sony makes a huge difference with our latest cloud services. For example, our Venue service supports video on demand, over-the-top, and integrated commerce. For content prep and linear playout, we offer the Managed Media Distribution Center. This centralized cloud-based operation can slash your satellite distribution costs, dramatically improve your productivity, and enable your staff to focus on the creative tasks they enjoy rather than rote, repetitive chores. Available as a service, the system not only saves you money, but can also replace capital expense with operating expense. For networks and station groups, it's a huge win-win. Now that we've shot, posted, and distributed our production, it's time to archive. Here, Sony has always been about options, whether you prefer to store content on physical media in the cloud or both for robust disaster recovery. For cloud storage, we're pleased to recommend our C Media Cloud platform. Based on industry-leading cloud storage, the platform ensures high availability and 11 nines of durability, a comforting thought in this uncertain world. In addition, cloud storage is available to any authorized device, anywhere there's an internet connection. Of course, you're free to mix C Media Cloud platform storage with on-premise physical storage. And for that, there's never been anything like Sony's Optical Disc Archive Generation 2. To start, it's optical. Sony has decades of optical experience, from the audio CD, DVD, and Blu-ray disc up to XD-Cam disc, which is a favorite for E&G. Optical means non-contact write and read, saving on both drive and media wear and tear. So you can access your data as often as you like without worry. These optical discs are environmentally tolerant and non-magnetic, making storage flexible and cost-effective. Gen 2 media boasts an incredible 100-year shelf life, so your content will be available for your children, and even their children. Optical Disc Archive Gen 2 leverages the latest in optical technology. Capacity? 3.3 terabytes in a single handheld cartridge. Speed, faster access than leading tape technologies. Immutability, the write once media is truly archival, an ideal complement to RAID for on-premise or hybrid cloud scenarios. Now let's see how Kent Denton of the Christian Broadcasting Network is integrating optical disc archive into their workflow.
Yeah, last fall we installed the second generation optical disc archive. We were one of the first in the United States to employ that. We're really excited about the possibilities with this. We're in the process right now of transitioning all of our old asset management assets into that, and we're finding that the ability to search and retrieve from it is very quick. So when searching into the archives now is actually a very easy process for us because it's all there, it's cataloged, it has metadata, the searchability, the ability to pull that clip up to view a proxy immediately is a real time saver for our producers in determining what clip do I want. Because in our old system, we had a 24-hour turnaround for something that was on the shelf. So the producer would call and say, I need this, and they'll say, okay, I'll get it for you tomorrow. Well, now it's just a matter of minutes. They click on it and retrieve it themselves. So speed is everything. Being able to retrieve that asset quickly is everything for us now in the demands that we have in the online world.
So that completes our journey from acquisition and file management to post-production, distribution, and archive. As you can see across every one of these 5 pillars, Sony stands ready to help you. More than a hardware vendor, we're a highly qualified business partner, your key to successful productions. You'll see the products and services I've mentioned throughout our Sony booth, and you'll encounter friendly, helpful Sony representatives who are ready to answer your questions. So we really appreciate you joining us today. I wish you a great day and do invite you into our booth. And just as a quick side note, if you are interested in learning more about the Crystal LED screen, this beautiful screen behind me, Todd is available to answer questions. He's raising his hand right over there. So please feel free to speak with him. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Welcome to the Sony exhibit and to our presentation on Sony's vision for the IP-connected future. At Sony, we help you go beyond definition. We listen carefully to broadcasters and production companies solving their problems with practical workflow innovation. We help you cut through the complexity of next-generation technologies. Our breakthroughs empower you not simply to create content, but also to move it, manage it, and automate your entire workflow. These are bold claims, but they're well supported by our vision for the IP-connected future. Sony's vision simplifies, replacing the separate infrastructures of SDI for live production and IP for file-based production, and creating a single unified IP network for both. Sony's vision lowers equipment costs, replacing expensive dedicated SDI routing switches with commercial off-the-shelf IP switches from the multi-billion-dollar networking industry. So, you're leveraging the ever-increasing capacity and the ever-decreasing prices in this fiercely competitive market where Juniper, Cisco, and Huawei contend. Sony's vision enables you to do more with less, originating more channels to reach a fractured audience wherever and however they're watching, over the air, over the top, on cable, on the web, or over social media. Sony's vision readily scales to 4K, 8K, HFR, HDR, and beyond. Sony's vision has the potential to transform operations with entirely new cost-saving possibilities for virtualization and REMI, remote integration. As just one example, imagine the savings when you can broadcast a game where only the cameras, the camera operators, and talent are on location, and the rest of the production team, director, TD, color shaders, replay operators, and audio engineer, remains in your bricks and mortar studio. No less important, Sony's vision sacrifices nothing. You lose none of the bedrock requirements that live broadcasting absolutely must have. Bulletproof reliability, uncompromising picture quality, minimal latency, faultless sync, seamless switching, and not least, multi-vendor interoperability. To make this vision a practical reality, Sony has been hard at work behind the scenes developing IP live technology, sometimes working alone, many times cooperating with other industry leaders and standard-setting bodies. We've developed and supported a vast portfolio of new technologies. Audio-video mapping converts real-time audio-video and ancillary data into IP packets that can traverse standard IT network fabrics. Compression. Sony's low-latency video codec enables up to 4 simultaneous 1080-60i signals to be carried on a single 1 gigabit Ethernet cable. This visually lossless codec also scales beautifully for 4K, carrying 2 UHD 4K signals across a single 10 gigabit Ethernet cable. Synchronization. Each packet is time-stamped and the entire system is synchronized to sub-microsecond accuracy, thanks to SMPTE ST2059 standards for precision time protocol. Real-time performance. Standard Ethernet delivers packets on an asynchronous best performance available. This is not nearly good enough for live broadcasting where frames must air synchronously. Sony's approach establishes the equivalent of a fast lane on the network, giving priority to audio, video, and ancillary data assets. Hitless failover. The system sends 2 copies of your signal over 2 links through separate network paths. So, if a link or a path should happen to fail, the show continues without a visible hit. And finally, there's seamless switching. Just as SDI-based switchers must transition glitch-free from one input to the next, so must IP Live. Sony technologies make it possible, using destination-timed switching methods for perfectly seamless results. At Sony, we took our first steps towards IP Live products 5 years ago with the NXL IP55 production unit, which provided point-to-point IP carriage for up to 4 simultaneous HD signals plus control. We followed with the foundation of Sony's present technology, the Network Media Interface NMI integrated circuit. We built this chip into converter and multiplexer cards, which plug into our conversion frame. The brains of the operation is our IP Live System Manager workstation. This provides the orchestration and the management data within the system. And the heart of Sony's approach are commercial, off-the-shelf IP switches. While others recommend proprietary, extra-cost switches, Sony created a system to leverage the tremendous economies of scale of commodity switches. You save money because you're standing on the shoulders of the multi-billion-dollar networking market. On this platform, Sony has built a growing ecosystem of IP Live compatible components, including some of the most acclaimed equipment in broadcasting. The Emmy Award-winning HDC 4300 is the world's first 2/3 inch broadcast camera with native 4K sensors. It now has an electrically and optically identical twin, the HDC P43 point-of-view camera. The HDC 4800 achieves up to 16 times super slow motion in HD and up to 8 times slow motion in 4K Ultra HD. The platform also supports live configurations of our high-end Super 35 cameras, the F55 and the F65. You can use processors like our BPU 4500 as well as the PWS 4500 instant replay server with SharePlay technology. And we built a new line of multi-format production switchers dubbed XVS to support IP Live. Powerful as these products undoubtedly are, we know you live in a multi-vendor world. And that's why Sony is committed to multi-vendor compatibility. For example, we've spearheaded the IP Live Alliance to promote the broadest possible compatibility with Sony's network media interface. We've seen demonstrations of NMI-compatible products from many companies, including Leader, 4A, and NEC. Sony is a member of JTNM, SMPTE, VSF, AMWA, and AIMS, who are all IP standardization or promotion bodies. Sony has been very actively participating in new IP standardization discussions and developments since ST2059 PTP, and now for proposed ST2110 and AMWA NMOS ISO 4. Sony has committed to support proposed ST2110 and NMOS ISO 4 once they become standards. To prove this, we welcome you to visit the IP Showcase located in N4824. There, you'll see IP interoperability between Sony and multiple vendors, highlighting proposed ST2110, ST2059, and NMOS ISO 4. It's easy to see why we call our IP Live solutions ready today, open for tomorrow. Empowered by some of the most advanced components in broadcasting and supported by multi-vendor compatibility, Sony's IP Live technology is ready to do amazing things. For example, you can use IP Live to achieve centralized AV routing. To connect many rooms and studios inside and outside a broadcast center, SDI requires complicated main and subrouter configurations. This, plus the need for high reliability and 24/7 operations, results in very high costs. Sony's IP Live technology dramatically simplifies the wiring among studios and control rooms and among your central facility and satellite locations. The system also enables powerful remote maintenance. Not only does IP Live result in substantial cost reduction, it greatly eases future expansion. To get more ports and bandwidth, just upgrade the speed of the IP infrastructure. IP Live marks a substantial step forward in mobile production units. Compared to IP Live, conventional 3G SDI cabling requires high cost, high weight, and high storage volume. These penalties become even more onerous in the transition to 4K program production. For example, each 4K 60p connection requires 4 3G SDI cables. In contrast, with compression-enabled, IP Live can carry 2 4K 60p signals on a single fiber interconnect. Our calculations for a sample 8-camera truck reveal a 75% reduction in the number of cables and an 85% savings in cable weight. That's equivalent to 268 kilograms, or as we say in Nevada, 600 pounds. The savings in size and weight are major advantages when you're configuring a road-going production unit. Clearly, IP Live changes how you can wire a mobile production. It also changes how you can configure that production. Conventional SDI trucks require you to roll up to the stadium with the switcher, SDI router, servers, camera controls, and all the associated personnel. IP Live can change all of that with a new outside broadcast configuration called Remote Integration, REMI. Also called at-home or home run production, REMI makes it possible to cover remote events from your own bricks and mortar control room. With REMI, IP connections establish high-quality, low-latency bidirectional communication between the remote site and your broadcast center. This means that your switcher, servers, camera control panels, and all the associated staff can stay right in your building, dramatically reducing the resources that you deploy to the remote sites. The savings in travel cost alone are enormous. And as the universe of live event coverage keeps expanding, REMI empowers you to keep production costs in line with audience size. Sony's IP Live technology makes it possible. Broadcasters around the world are starting to experience the advantages of Sony's IP Live technology for themselves. It began in Rio with the TV Globo coverage of the Summer Games and the world's first 4K IP mobile unit. So let's hear from Raimundo Barros, Chief Technology Officer at TV Globo, about this historic achievement. He says, this February, TV Globo experienced a broadcast first, live broadcasting Brazilian Carnival in 4K HDR, taking full advantage of the capabilities of our new Sony-powered 4K IP truck. The Sony IP Live technology made it possible for us to fit the amazing capabilities of 4K HDR in one single OB truck, providing the flexibility of IP with the familiarity and confidence level of a conventional AV infrastructure. IP technology is future-proof and rock solid. We will continue to expand our OB truck's capabilities, doing more and better. That is the Globo way. And at this NAB, we're pleased to announce that the British Broadcasting Corporation has selected Sony's IP Live. Here's the story.
BBC StudioWorks is partnering with Sony to deliver 3 brand new TV studios at Television Centre. We'll be shooting all sorts of things from pre-recorded TV to big live Saturday night shows and everything in between. It really is going to be the most exciting new studio opening for a long time in London. Sony are delivering to us 22 cameras, of which 8 are 4K, 3 XVS switchers and over 200 monitors. Television Centre is a really important investment for StudioWorks, so whilst we needed technology that works now, we also needed technology that's going to work in the next 10 to 15 years. IP Live production basically gives us the ability to transfer data down one cable rather than installing 4. It also really opens the door to 4K and HDR as well, which is great for us. I think the main reason StudioWorks chose Sony was just they provided a real 360 package for us. It gave us the flexibility we needed for the pricing that was important, but it also was a name that our customers already know and trust, and a package that really integrates well into our existing infrastructure. We've really appreciated Sony's open standards approach, so that's allowed us to really integrate a lot of workflows that already work really well for us, as well as sort of thinking about how it can work for us in the future. Television Centre really will be the best studio in the UK, and we will be opening for shows in September this year.
Today, I've mentioned 3 powerful applications for Sony's IP Live: centralized routing, mobile production, and remote integration, or REMI. But live producers are only just beginning to discover the possibilities. For example, it's a short step from REMI to centralized production. This configuration enables a single regional or national control room to manage multiple production sites. Centralizing the bricks and mortar recording and production facility improves resource utilization, lowers costs, and brings high-end live production to more events than ever. In addition to sports, applications include entertainment, education, government, and faith. There's also resource sharing. We designed our XD cam switchers with a modular X panel. IP Live leverages this, enabling a single Sony switcher to produce literally multiple events at once. You can apply some mix effects banks to one show while the rest work a separate show. Just as the transition from tape to file-based production transformed non-real-time workflows, IP Live technology has the potential to redefine the future of live production. Consider virtualization. Just imagine removing physical equipment from the plant and moving it into a remote data center. Imagine saying, I need a switcher for an hour, and getting that switcher on demand. Now imagine that concept extended to an entire control room provided as needed. Live production as a service will furnish switcher IOs, replay IOs, and everything else you need on a subscription basis. At least for top-tier broadcasting, our physical control rooms and mobile units are not disappearing anytime soon. Nevertheless, the economic and creative potential for IP Live technology is transformational. By now, I hope you share our excitement about the prospects of IP Live infrastructure. You've seen how Sony has been hard at work, not simply developing cutting-edge products, but also cooperating behind the scenes with leading third-party suppliers and standard-setting bodies to make our vision of IP Live a practical reality. So, if you want to leverage the cost savings, the workflow benefits, and the incredible operational efficiencies of IP Live production, you want to make Sony your business partner. Start the conversation with your Sony representative right here at NAB. You can see Sony's IP Live products and systems at these locations throughout the exhibit. When you do, you'll find friendly, helpful Sony representatives ready to answer your questions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention, and have a great show, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. And for those of you who have been asking about this beautiful screen here, this is Sony's new Crystal LED display. And if you have any questions about that, you can just ask Todd. And we usually play this Where's Waldo game of Where's Todd. Todd is over there, and we can help you find him if you have any questions about that. Have a great show, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Hill, and I'm here at NAB 2017 at the Sony booth. I'm here with Pete Diorio. Pete, thanks for meeting with me today.
No problem.
Tell me a little bit about what you're doing here at NAB.
So, Mike, that's not live then, is it?
I know. What? Hi, I'm Kat Hill, and I'm here at NAB 2017 at Sony's booth, and I'm meeting with Pete Diorio. Thanks for meeting with me today.
No problem.
Tell me a little bit about what you do here at NAB.
Well, we're a little bit different than some of the other groups here at NAB. We don't actually have one specific product. What we do is we look into the marketplace for needs that people have, a problem that they want to solve, and then we put together the right kind of products in a package all together to make it easy for the customers to just start to do what it is they need to do to whatever their problem is. Right. So for example, here we have our compact production studio. We put together, based on, again, the marketplace, what they need, we put together a number of Sony components as well as third-party components, non-Sony product, to put together a small little production studio here that's perfect for those needs where you don't need a full-blown production or something very expensive. So let's say a low-end church production or low-end corporate or government productions and things like that. And we've got some pretty flexible Sony gear here. We've got the new MCX 500 switcher, which is really cool. It's a little bit better than the last one because we got logo and we've got title inputs, and so it's pretty flexible, and yet it's pretty low cost. And we've got our HXR NX5R camera. It's a mouthful. Sorry about that. And as you can see, we're in the process right now of doing a little bit of a shoot. We've been doing shoots on the show floor. And the cool thing here is that we work with students, such as yourself, and we're trying to give you guys a little bit of an experience of what it's like in the professional world. And this kind of kit is the perfect starter kit, if you will. And there's nothing non-professional about it, but it's a perfect starter kit. We have teams of your colleagues or your schoolmates, if you will, working it and doing shoots for us, which they'll then go off and they'll edit later to put on social media. And we got our start with these packages. Actually, it started with a need in the Air Force. The Air Force had this design with that, but all this stuff shows up. You have to unbox it. You have to put it all together. You have to get rid of the boxes. On the face of it, you think that so what? How hard is that? But in reality, try it sometime. Yeah. So that's the convenience we provide. We provide the entire package.
You have the ability to potentially customize a backpack eventually, or at least suggest different equipment to include in future models. Is that the understanding?
Yeah, they do. We don't do one-offs. Because we're a company that sells product, we like to come up with a plan, and if we see that there's, let's put it this way, we'll take suggestions for, if somebody wants to order 5 or 10 or something like that, we can do that. We don't want to do, we're not in the business of creating custom one-offs. That's not what we do.
That makes sense. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer some of our questions.
Sure, I appreciate it, and I did too much talking.
No.
You should have interrupted me and said, wait, I have more questions for you, Pete.
Nope, you've got all the answers, really. So thank you. And have a great time at NAB the rest of the time.
I'm going to do my best. Hopefully I don't dry out from being in this Las Vegas air. Yeah. So stay hydrated.
Thank you. Yourself. Thank you very much. Sure. Right, bye. Okay. Are we done? Thank you very much. Again, I'm Kat Hill at NAB 2017.
Gaglioni. I am the CTO of Sony Professional Solutions of North America, and I want to give you a new presentation in the area of live production for HDR applications. It's a complete ecosystem that we have developed to do high dynamic range production. Okay, to begin, this slide attempts to describe all of the possible uses that we have today for video, all the way from a very large scale production for movie making, for example, electronic cinematography, very high budget movies. Also, another application is the area of live production for sports, where you need to have very high quality production, but in real time. There's no time for do color grading such as what we have in movie making. Another area is another range of applications is for lower budgets, corporate video, event videography, all the way down to still imaging photography. And Sony has been developing and introducing in the market different technologies for every class of applications. Then we have our studio cameras, widely accepted in de facto formats for sports production, along with our servers and our high frame rate cameras. In electronic cinematography, we have a very high quality F65, is an 8K camera. The F55 is a 4K camera. And also for event videography, corporate videography, we have lower cost but very high quality cameras that we have in the handy mode for easy transportation and usage. While introducing all of these technologies, Sony has developed different types of workflows for high dynamic range. In the area of sports applications, we are now developing and we are introducing in the market something called SR Live, which I will explain in a few moments. It's live production. It's real-time HDR production. In the area of electronic cinematography, movie making, we have another workflow which we call file-based production, non-real time. And I will explain those techniques later this afternoon in a separate presentation. And for corporate video, event videography, we have a different type of workflow we call instant HDR workflow. By the way, all of these workflows are presented in detail in the HDR pavilion that we have just adjacent to this stage over there. Okay, let me, during these few years that we've been doing HDR research on HDR applications, we have worked together with a number of end users in order to guide Sony to develop very efficient workflows and different levels of picture quality. In the area of file-based for non-real-time production, we've been working very closely with the cinema studios. Okay? Then we have to produce a very high-quality product. It's the mezzanine master, which ultimately is going to be distributed either for movie theater or theatrical distribution, or for 4K movies, 4K Blu-rays, or over-the-top distribution. And the curve for distribution is PQ, the perceptual quantization curve for HDR. Therefore, we have a production format and we have distribution formats. In the area of sports and live applications, we have developed something called SR Live. And it's a special mezzanine production format of very, very high quality in real time that requires no metadata. And after we complete the production, we can convert very easily for distribution in any of the HDR formats that exist today, like PQ or HLG. We've been working very closely with the BBC, with ESPN for Sky Sports. In corporate video and event videography, we have adopted the use of a technology called HLG, hybrid log gamma, and that is incorporated in our event videography camera, and I will show you later. Okay, let me begin, just to remind you what the difference between SDR and HDR, standard dynamic range and high dynamic range. Standard dynamic range is the usual video signals that we have seen for many, the entire history of television. It's about 100%, 100 nits of amplitude. And as you can see, the details and the highlights are not visible. The details and the shadows are not visible. Then one of the benefits, of the key benefits of the HDR world is we now expand the latitude, the exposure range. We can now see a lot of information in the shadows of the images. The color volume is much larger. And you can also see details in the skies, in the highlights of the image. In high dynamic range, we now have to use a completely different set of curve, or gamma curve. We are now looking at optical to electrical transfer functions and electrical to optical transfer functions, OETFs and EOTFs. And there are two internationally standardized curves, the perceptual quantizer, also known as SEMTI 2084, and hybrid log gamma, HLG, which was developed jointly by NHK and the BBC, and internationally standardized also in the standard ITU 2100. Then, very simple, optical to electrical conversion. This happens during the origination of the program or in the camera head. Electrical to optical transfer function that happens in the display in the television set. Okay? Then remember, this is not only about brightness level, it's also about a color volume. We are moving from the yellow triangle, which is the 709 color space, all the way to the black triangle, which is the recommendation 2020. It's a new color gamut space established in the ultra high definition standard. Therefore, if you combine the new color space with now the increase in luminance, you have a gigantic volume of colors that we have never seen before. That is one of the promise that HDR brings to the industry. The standards that I have been talking about, back in 2012, 2013, we introduced the standard ITU recommendation 2020. That describes the parameters of ultra-high definition formats, the 1080 in progressive format, the 4K and the 8K, and also the new color gamut. But the gamma of those signals were not established at that moment. Then after 4 years of investigations and discussion, we established last June 2016, we established the standard 2100. And 2100 describes the high dynamic range curves that we use in production and distribution. Then the two classes of gamma curve. One is the PQ, perceptual quantization, and the other one is HLG. The perceptual quantizer, PQ, standardizes the electrical to optical transfer function that is what we put in the display. Okay, that's what all consumer displays will have for HDR applications. The HLG, the hybrid low gamma, standardizes the curve that we put either in the camera head or in the production of the content. Okay? All right. With this preamble, this is a little bit of information about HDR. Let me describe the details of our SR Live. This is the commercial name of the system that Sony developed for a live production of HDR signals. The environment that we have is outside broadcasting trucks. It's a 10-bit environment. Video switching, character generators, graphics generators, titling, subtitling, everything operates on a 10-bit interfaces, which is what we have today in television. The environment that we have is either high definition 1080 60 progressive or 4K, and primarily we have been doing 4K 60 progressive, 50 hertz or 60 hertz. And the gamma in production that Sony has selected is S-Log3. It's a special curve that Sony has now in all of our high-end live production cameras. as well as in cinematography. And the color space in that production environment is the color space 2020. Therefore, all of the elements that we have to use to create the production, the live signal from the camera, maybe legacy material, pre-recorded material, material that has been 709 that have to be converted to 2020. All of these have to be converted ahead of the production because the environment of production is SLOC3 2020. Once the production is completed, now we have a master format at the output of the truck. And we are ready for distribution. And there are two ways of distributing the signal, either PQ or HLG for distribution. As well as we have to convert to SDR, because this is how we make a living. We have to produce our HD SDR output to serve the linear channels that we have today in television. Then these were the the challenges that Sony was faced with when we were designing this system. Outside broadcasting operations do not have the financial resources to have simultaneous different trucks, an SDR truck and an HDR truck. This is financially prohibited. Then operators have asked Sony, please allow us to have a minimum use of hardware and people, a most efficient use of hardware and operators in order to optimize the production, and if at all possible, to do SDR and HDR simultaneously, but with a single crew of operators. The camera shaders that we have in television have been doing shading and painting of cameras for a number of years. And they have created very experienced skill sets in shading these cameras. Therefore, we need to reuse those skill sets. We cannot afford to retrain thousands of camera shaders that exist around the world. And they are very familiar with shading SDR signals in displays and waveform monitors. Also, very important to have a unified master format in the truck of very, very high quality, from which we can then derive signals for distribution, such as PQ or HLG. Also, very important and never done before, the look of the images that we have in the production truck, SDR and HDR. Those images are usually very, very high quality, but unfortunately, we have never been able to transmit that look all the way to the home environment. This is the very first system in the industry that guarantees the transmission of the decisions that we make in the truck all the way to the living room. Okay? This is called a rendering intent. Okay, how are we going to do this? You know well that we have these very high-end cameras. These are the 4300 is the first 4K high frame rate camera in the market. We have the 4800 is high frame rate, but in 4K as well, for up to 480 frames per second in 4K or 960 frames per second in HD, 16 times slow motion. And we have the companion POV, the box camera. The baseband processing unit that is used to operate on the signals from the camera heads have multiple processors. We have HDR processors, SDR processors, HD, and 4K. Then simultaneously, we can create all of these variations inside the BPU. Therefore, the output of the BPU can be SDR and HDR simultaneously with different color, knee, and gain differential. We can apply different amplification to the SDR signal and to the HDR signal. And once you establish that differential gain, the operator, the camera shader, only needs to look at the SDR for a normal shading of the camera. Why are we using SLOC3? SLOC3, some of you may know, we introduced SLOC, is a special logarithmic curve in the year 2000 for cinematographic applications. This curve matches perfectly the characteristics of the imaging sensors that we have in the Sony cameras. but not only in cinematography, but now in studio and live production cameras. The horizontal axis that you see over there is relative scene brightness, up to about 1300%. The vertical axis is 10 bits. Then it's a very efficient curve to take up to 15 stops of dynamic range and map it onto 10 bits. Then this S-Log3 master can easily be converted to PQ or HLG for distribution, as well as down convert to SDR to produce our standard HC 709 video. As I said, we make a master format in S-Log3, and then we have to convert for distribution. Sony just introduced at this NAB, this is a universal converter, the HDRC 4000. It converts anything to anything. It can convert 709 to 2020. It can convert Gamma 709 to S-Log3, to PQ, to HLG. We can go from S-Log3 to PQ or HLG. Resolution, it can go from 1080 to 4K. Therefore, it's a spatial conversion, gamut conversion, high dynamic range conversion, and all of the curves that we have today in live production. Then it's a very powerful conversion box. Also, this device can be used in a number of places inside the production truck. We can use it in the initial stages of conversion between the input signals into the production area, and definitely you need to use this box in the output of the truck when you are ready to send your master program for distribution, satellite transmission or cable transmission. This device, the HDRC 4000, is the very first device in the industry that allows us to transmit the rendering intent, the look of the images that we decide inside the truck, in the production truck, whether it's SDR or HDR signal. We now have a mechanism to send those looks all the way to the living room. This is called artistic intent render. Therefore, the decisions that the director of photography or the technical director in the truck makes around the SDR look and the HDR look can now be converted all the way to your living room and your consumer TV set. And we are showing here in the live production pavilion that directly in front of me, you will see a Bravia set 4K, 60 frames per second, presenting the same image look that we create in production. This is, you can see it in this area. Okay, these cameras that I've been talking about, the 4300, 4800, output simultaneously SDR and HDR. Then one possibility would be to use an operation like this, where the SDR signal goes to the SDR truck and the HDR signal goes to the HDR truck. But that is still very inefficient in terms you have to have a double broadcast operation, production operation. We would like to offer to the marketplace a much simpler and more efficient operation. You create the entire production in HDR and then convert from your HDR to SDR for distribution. And that is the role of the output converter. Therefore, you use a single crew of operators, you use a single infrastructure in one single truck. It's a very efficient HDR live production. Another message that we wanted to introduce at this NAB is not only the production of 4K, but also the introduction of HD HDR. The entire infrastructure now can be unified around 1080, 50p, or 60p. You simply need one coaxial cable. It's a 3G HD SDI connection, as opposed to the 4 cables that we have to use in 4K. Then the entire HDR production is now available in HD HDR. the same workflow that I mentioned earlier can be executed with 1080 progressive. And once you get to the program output, we will convert for PQ distribution or HLG distribution, as well as the traditional 1080i 709 SDR output. Okay, therefore, currently, this is a software upgrade that we are introducing in the BPU of these cameras. We now can select 4K or 1080p as the output of the BPU. But not only with these cameras, which are the top-of-the-line cameras that we make, we are also offering the possibility to the standard HD cameras that we had in the past, which still are flagship cameras, but in HD, such as the 2500 model, and even the inexpensive 1700. We are introducing a board that can be placed inside the CCU of this camera, and it will up-convert in resolution, and it will up-convert from SDR to HDR. Okay, you can output S-Log3, you can output HLG directly from the CCU of these cameras. Another new product that we are introducing at NAB is our new mastering monitor. The X300 is the most popular and highest quality display right now in the market. It's a 4K display where it can use all of these high dynamic range curve that I've been talking about, but it's rather large for an OB truck, for a production truck. Then we are now introducing the E171. It's a BBM monitor. It's a 17-inch display. It's rack mountable, and it has the same OLED technology and signal processing technology of the larger monitor, but more cost-effective and easy to install in racks. Therefore, at this moment, Sony has completed the entire range of production tools that we have for live HDR production at the highest quality levels. We have servers, we have HDR conversion devices, we have studio cameras, displays, all integrated in an HDR infrastructure, utilizing S-Log3 and the wide color gamut of 2020. Coming back to this range of applications, I wanted to talk to you also about the instant HDR workflows. These are the techniques, the workflows that we use for event videography and corporate video. And these are the requirements that this type of applications need. These are users that are on their modest budgets for production. They don't have the budget or the complexities to do color grading in detail. They want something rapid, basically instant HDR recorded in cost-efficient cameras, and then they have very simplistic production tools. At this show, we are introducing these two cameras, the Z150 and the FS5, with the new software upgrade. This is a software upgrade that it will enable HLG, hybrid log gamma, now implemented in the camera directly. Therefore, you are recording HLG programs directly onto your memories in XAVC compression. You can connect. The only thing you need to do is focus, adjust the exposure, and then the signal that's recorded in HLG, you can present that signal directly to your consumer displays. You can do simple edits, simple productions, nonlinear editing, and you can upload the content to social media, for example. Now, just to remind you, some of you may not have this information, but the blue curve that you see in this slide is the traditional 709 gamma that we have in a standard dynamic range television. The red curve that you see there is the hybrid log gamma, newly standardized for high dynamic range for television applications. And notice that the red curve follows the 709 for quite a good portion. Therefore, if you present HLG in a standard dynamic range display, it will look backward compatible. It will look like television to some extent. But if you present HLG curve in a proper HDR display with HLG gamma curve, you will see a very nice picture with high dynamic range characteristics. Okay? Now, the viewfinders of these cameras are SDR. These cameras they were introduced in the market a couple of years ago. And the viewfinders and the LCD displays that we have in the cameras are SDR. Then if you present the HLG signal in those displays, it will look a little bit dim. Then we have a new feature called a display assist that allows us to boost the signal, the HLG signal, to make it more contrasted to facilitate focusing and exposure of the signal. Okay, this is all I wanted to talk about in the area of live production, and I want you to stay for a little while to see some clips that we have shot using this technology of SR Live for live applications. Thank you very much.